What is up, my dudes and dudettes? Welcome back to another installment of the Adventure Van Build series. Behind the camera is Colleen, and I am your host, Todd, and we make these ludicrously informative videos of us converting this 2022 Sprinter cargo van you see behind me into the ultimate adventure vehicle on wheels. Today, we are covering the top floor. This is pretty self-explanatory, so let's go ahead and just jump in and cover the materials that we are using today. For the front of the van, we are using a material called 2Tech2. This is made in Belgium. This little sample book comes from Camper Van HQ. You're going to want to go ahead and order one of these because the colors do look a little bit different in person than they do on the interwebs. The nice thing about this flooring is it's a high density, tightly woven vinyl flooring that's designed for high traffic commercial use. It's UV resistant, it's antifungal, it can be cleaned with just water and a brush. It's got a nice acoustic felt backing on the back of it that helps with acoustic properties as well as a nice foot fill. Overall, it is just a great flooring option for a van. The color we went with is Moonless Night. A little ominous there. Anyways, we wanted to split things up between the front of the van and the garage, mostly because the 2Tech2 is so damn expensive. So we went with Lonseal Lawn Ridge. This is a staple in most adventure van companies. You see this pretty much everywhere. It's got a nice textured ribbing to it, as well as speckles that help hide dirt. It's a one-piece vinyl floor, again designed for high traffic commercial use. Now we're probably not going to get as many clicks and likes on this video because we don't have a fancy wood flooring that you see on the Instagrams, the TikToks, the Pinterests, but we are very firm believers that this is an adventure van that's going to see a lot of dirt, wind, water, rain, dust, dog hair, foot traffic. So yeah, one-piece commercial floorings adhered to the floor are our solution and our recommendation. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump right in and see how we installed these.
Originally, I had planned on doing a simple transition strip between my flooring types, but later decided to use a piece of L-track for this for added utility. This means I had to pull the floor out and modify it. Luckily, it's an easy task with a one-piece lightweight floor like the one we put in our van. I simply cut out a 1.375-inch slot with a track saw and then finished up the edges with the multi-tool. Here's my pops and I putting the subfloor back in the van. He's been wanting some more airtime on my videos, so here you go, Dad. It's the least I could do for breaking curfew all those times when I was a teenager and getting my two-wheel drive truck stuck in the middle of the woods a couple days after getting my license. Anyways, I had to pull this floor in and out about 3 times now, and I, and probably my wife too, since she was 2 out of 3 of those, 100% appreciate that we made this thing from Kusa board. So I've flipped this thing probably like 10 times now. I'm trying to decide between weave going in or weave going long ways. I've looked at it from all angles, and for some reason I feel like this natural inviting weave direction looks best. This is not how people typically normally do it. Normally they'll run the weave along the length of the van, but I just really like the look of this. I confirmed with my wife, she likes it too. So this is what we're going with. We ended up ordering 6 feet, which covers the width of the van left to right. And the nice thing about going this direction is we get an extra about 6 inches of length on that end because the roll is 2 meters. To actually cut the material, I'm using the template from the subfloor video. If you haven't seen that one already, you should. I threw it back in the van to check fitment and to make sure I polished every peanut and counted every cornflake. And then took the template and the 2Tech2 into my living room. My wife loves it when van stuff bleeds over into the house, and I laid it on some cardboard face down. I triple confirmed that the template was in the correct orientation so that when I flip it back over, it actually fits in the van. To trace out the template on the 2Tech2, I turned to my old friend the Pika Dry with the white lead. It's not really lead, it's more like a crayon, but yeah, it works great for the backside of this material. Then using a utility knife, I cut along the marks. It does take a bit of force to cut through this thicker 2Tech2 flooring, but a new sharp blade makes quick work of it. I asked Gizmo if he would help me, but he just climbed in his bed and went to sleep. Here's the 2Tech2 after cutting it and setting it in the van. There are a few parts that needed a little extra trimming, so I just used my Wiss tradesman shears. I really like how this flooring looks in the van. It's not as insta-worthy as a hardwood, but this is an adventure van. I have dogs and now a kid, and you'd be surprised at how much dirt they can track in. If I could describe the 2Tech2 floor, it's kind of like a Chilowich laminated to a thick felt. It has a great foot feel and is super durable. Anyways, back to processing this flooring. We have 2 L tracks for the passenger seat, and I applied pressure to the floor to find them, and then took the utility knife and cut along the edge. The knife simply slides along the side of the Kusa board, yielding a perfect cut. For the Lonseal, I used the exact same method of marking as before using our previous floor templates. The only delta is this time I loaded up the Pika Dry with the standard pencil lead. This shows up really nicely on the back side of this material. I also loaded up a brand new blade in the utility knife to improve its utility, or I guess its ability and agility and versatility to provide me with tranquility when it cuts with stability instead of volatility. With both flooring types cut, I went and laid them back in the van to make sure everything looked Gucci. I also got another set of eyes on it with help from my dad, making another appearance in this video. Although we're gonna have to work on the camera positional awareness a bit, Pops.
All right, we're getting ready to glue down the garage flooring. This is Lawn Ridge from Lonseal. We're going to be using the 650 epoxy. This is a 2-part epoxy, so we need to mix this up. So we're going to go ahead and do that now.
I went ahead and mixed the 2 components together according to the Lonseal 650 instructions on the side of the bucket. I would say using a drill mixer is a must to make sure the epoxy sets up correctly. Since I did 2 different pieces of flooring in our van, one for the garage and another for the living space, I felt the best way to glue it up was side to side. I took a bar of aluminum and placed it in the middle for weight, so when I rolled back the one side, it wouldn't move. Then I kind of just dumped and spread the adhesive into a thin and even layer like it was icing on a cake. A super lightweight, one-piece, durable, water-resistant cake made from Kusa board, of course. And as for the thinness, as thin as I could get it with our piece of sheet metal trowel. More on that later. Then I swooped out the Lonseal onto the adhesive and rolled it down. Lonseal recommends a 100-pound roller, but in a small van, those big rollers are pretty unwieldy, so I just bought a small handheld laminate roller and threw my weight into it. I was sore the next day, but it worked really well. Also, not sure if you noticed, but there's another dad in the mix. Colleen's dad was in town for this part. Man, I should have posted this video for Father's Day. One other note here, do this with the van parked on a flat surface. My driveway has a slight incline to it, and while I was rolling the Lonseal, I noticed it started sliding towards the front of the van by about 1/4 of an inch. Luckily we noticed this and we were able to slide it back before the adhesive dried.
Well, we just finished rolling the floor for the first time. That went about as well as it could have. One thing that really sucked, and maybe you saw in the video back there, besides me sweating a ton, was that our trowel is actually concave and bent. This is something you might want to check before you start, laying down this floor and smearing this adhesive everywhere, because it basically made the long side inoperable and we had to use the short side only, which took twice as long to cover this area. We were literally down to the wire on that 30-minute open time. All in all, we got it done and it looks great, so we're going to go ahead and move on. In about 2 to 3 hours, we need to re-roll the floor according to the instructions.
Again, according to the instructions, always read the instructions. You need to re-roll the floor about 2 to 3 hours later. One other tip provided by the user MoGrab on Sprinter Source is that if you're doing the entire floor in Lonseal, they recommend buying 2 buckets of adhesive and only mixing for half the floor at a time, because again, according to the instructions, you only have 30 minutes to spread the adhesive and get the floor down.
Now for laying down the 2Tech2, we're going to use a contact adhesive. We're going to turn to our old friend Landau Top and Trim. This is a great all-around contact adhesive for automotive applications. Before we get to spraying, I'm going to share a little Todd tip on how I get the adhesive from this into my spray gun.
It's a Todd tip! This stuff can be pretty messy, so pouring it into the spray gun, I use the V-Easy Pour Tape trick, where you take some painter's tape and make a V shape on top of the can. This keeps the adhesive away from the rim and reduces the amount of spillover. Since we are spraying this area, I masked it really well. I used butcher paper, painter's tape, and then a plastic drop cloth over the front cab. For the spray gun, I'm using Astro Pneumatics 4008 and I set my regulator to 50 psi. I played around with the flow control and pattern knobs on a piece of cardboard before actually spraying in the van. I sprayed it on both sides, the floor and the 2Tech2, let them dry and then rolled them together. Anyways, I'm gonna stop talking now and just roll a time lapse with these silky smooth jams. Alright, so I've got this Lonseal in the back here that I'm putting in the garage, and the original depth of this L-track was perfect to bottom out on this FR4, but now this Lonseal adds a bit of thickness. So I've got another piece of thin FR4 that I'm going to put down in here. They only sell it in 1.5 inch bars, so I got to cut off a little bit because it's only 1.375 on the gap, but this will act as a hard stop. After I cut this spacer down and fit it in the slot, to find the existing holes and drill them, I used a flashlight from underneath the van since this material is semi-transparent. Alright, I got this transition piece here. I'm going to put this L-track. This was a late addition when I decided to do two different floorings, the 2Tech2 in the front and then the Lonseal in the garage to kind of like separate the two. Anyways, so I pulled the floor out. My dad helped me. One piece floor, it's great for that. But since this doesn't have the 1/4 inch spacer underneath, I had to go with 3/8 inch FR4 here. That takes up the 1/4 inch on the bottom, and then that extra 1/8 inch that the Lonseal and the 2Tech2 add to the situation. I just finished drilling these holes here. This L-track, I'll measure it in a minute, but this is right in front of the frame member. There's a frame member that sits right here underneath the van, so you either have to drill it here or you'd have to move it forward a bit to drill in front of that frame member. But I got 4 clean holes. Always double, quadruple check, triple check before you drill holes in your floor like this. I then glued and sealed these spacers with Sikaflex 252 and a handy corner caulking tool from Jeff Bezos. For actually mounting the L-track down, I passed bolts through the floor and made custom 3/16 inch thick steel powder coated plates held in place with washers and lock nuts. Then to seal everything up, I used Sikaflex 221 applied to the rib gaps and then filleted down with a gloved finger. Always improving and learning from past methods, the first Sikaflex joint looked a little messy, so we took our own advice from the roof and taped around the perimeter prior to laying down the sealant. By the way, this stuff seems to be one of those things that just gets everywhere. The official recommendation for cleanup is mineral spirits, but we found 99% isopropyl alcohol works just as well. For the L-track that will hold down the seat, we wanted to beef things up a bit and use M8 grade 5 bolts. Normal L-track uses 1/4 fasteners, so we threw it on the CNC and profiled some new countersinks. Yay!
Okay, in order to install the L-tracks for the seat in front, I need to drop the gas tank. Coincidentally enough though, I've got this baby. This is a 47-gallon tank from S&B also going in, so I needed to drop it anyways. There'll be another video on me installing this, so look forward to that. Let's go ahead and get this gas tank out.
So it turns out there's like zero space above the S&B tank, so I had to take my beautifully powder-coated brackets and modify them. This meant making some sparks fly by first removing some of that powder coat and then getting tiggy with it and digging in some weld nuts. These weld nuts are a ½ inch deep and protrude up through the van floor a bit for some nice thread engagement, so I also had to open those holes up a bit too. For the seat L-track plates under the van here, I also taped on top of them to further reduce the cleanup. I also swapped the bolts for shorter ones eventually once the adhesive was dry. Nice thing about this plate design is if I need to pull up the L-track for any reason, I can do it from inside the van. I might actually switch all brackets this way in the future. Oh look, another completely custom part. Seeing a trend here? I designed this step in SolidWorks and fabricated it in aluminum. I made a pass-through in the front to slide in sandals when the door is closed. I also needed custom dimensions for my layout and slapped a Moonraker logo on there for good measure.
Alright, for drilling these holes, there's actually these little dimples right here. There's 2 in the front and 2 in the back. And so I'm actually just using those to guide this hole. Seems like a good place to drill. I'm actually going to only use 2 of these here. So let's do it.
We are using our tried and true Rivna installation method where we drill the sides, then deburr outside and then inside, followed up with some anti-seize to protect the bare metal from corrosion, and then finally installing with our Astro PRN1 pneumatic Rivnut tool. Now to transfer these rivnut locations to the actual step, we are using the same pointed set screw method we've used before. We turn these on our lathe, but you can buy the pointed set screws online as well. And now it's time to send this thing off to powder coating. To attach the step extension to the step, I opted for threaded inserts. I drilled the holes with a stubby drill bit and my right-angled DeWalt. The step material is a composite and drills and taps kind of weird, so I also filled each hole and coated each insert with epoxy adhesive. These inserts are called tricerts. You basically drill an undersized hole, and on install they cut and form their own threads. They make an insanely overpriced installation tool, but using a screw and weld nut specifically, since they have an extended ridge on them, works just fine as well. And here is the step back from powder coat and installed. We used a matte black, slightly textured powder coat from Prismatic Powders.
Well, you lovely people, that wraps up another video in the Adventure Van build series. We hope you liked it. We sure did, because now we have a floor in our van. This feels great. It really makes it feel like we're making progress on the interior, and it's getting me super pumped about building this van and finally getting it done so we can use it. Yeah. All right, this project was beginner DIY friendly, especially if you're only doing the top floor. Now, if you're going to do the L-track, that bumps it up to intermediate for sure. There's just a lot of things you have to take into account, not drilling into your frame members underneath the van. We had to drop the gas tank, make all those custom brackets and everything. It's just a lot of work and a lot of detail involved there. Overall, we spent just shy of $1,000 on this project with the 2 flooring, all the L-track, and all the bits and bobs, with the 2Tech 2 making up a majority of that cost. But we really love this floor, and we think it's worth it for our van at least. Overall, this project will probably take you a full day or 2, especially if you don't make videos like us. Seriously, don't make videos. I'm not trying to limit the competition or anything. Like, it takes forever and it slows everything down so much. But we're enjoying it, and hopefully you are too, and we are committed at this point. So it's kind of one of those things. If you like what we are doing and you like our videos, go ahead and give them a thumbs up. It really does help us out there. If you have any questions or comments on anything you've seen in this video, you can drop those down below. I'll personally respond to each and every one of you. And on your way down there, you know what to do. Slap that subscribe button if you want to see us again. check myself through spit up here real quick. All that momentum and get you pumped about building vans. Made for high traffic cars.